20 chilling and horrific true stories from around the world. The whale ship Essex was attacked and sunk by a sperm whale in the Pacific Ocean, inspiring Herman Melville's Moby Dick. The crew was stranded at sea for months, enduring starvation and dehydration. Some resorted to cannibalism, drawing lots to determine who would die to save the others. Only 8 of the 20 crew members survived. The Holodomor was a man-made famine in Soviet Ukraine, orchestrated by Stalin's policies of forced collectivization. Millions of Ukrainians starved to death as grain and food were confiscated by the government. There are reports of desperate acts of cannibalism and entire villages perishing. It is widely regarded as an act of genocide. During an FA Cup semi-final at Hillsborough Stadium in Sheffield, overcrowding led to a crush that killed 97 people and injured hundreds. Fans were trapped and suffocated against metal fences while authorities failed to intervene. The tragedy was exacerbated by initial media blame placed on the victims, which was later debunked. In Villisca, Iowa, 8 people, including 6 children, were bludgeoned to death with an axe while sleeping in their home. The crime scene was gruesome, with mirrors covered and lamps burning low. Despite numerous suspects and theories, the case remains unsolved, and the house is now a purportedly haunted attraction. The Titanic sank after striking an iceberg, resulting in over 1,500 deaths. While many know of the disaster, the chilling details include lifeboats leaving half empty, the orchestra playing until the ship broke apart, and survivors recalling screams of the dying in the freezing water. The tragedy exposed flaws in maritime safety standards. Over 800,000 Tutsi and moderate Hutu were massacred in 100 days by the Hutu-led government and militias. The killings were brutal, with neighbors turning on neighbors and victims slaughtered with machetes. The world largely stood by as this horrifying atrocity unfolded. Charles Manson and his cult followers committed a series of gruesome murders, including the slaying of actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant. The killers wrote messages in blood at the crime scenes, creating a climate of fear. Manson's twisted manipulation of his followers remains a chilling example of cult influence. A gas leak at the Union Carbide pesticide plant in Bhopal killed thousands instantly and exposed over 500,000 people to toxic chemicals. Victims suffered burns, blindness, and respiratory damage. It is considered one of the world's worst industrial disasters, with long-lasting health and environmental effects. In a remote German farmstead, 6 members of the Gruber family were brutally murdered with a mattock. Strangely, the killer stayed in the house for several days after the murders, feeding the animals and living among the corpses. Despite numerous theories, the case remains unsolved. A Uruguayan rugby team's plane crashed in the Andes Mountains, stranding survivors in freezing conditions for 72 days. With no food and little hope of rescue, they resorted to eating the frozen bodies of their dead teammates. Their harrowing survival story was later recounted in the book *Alive*. 9 experienced hikers mysteriously died in the Ural Mountains under bizarre circumstances. Investigators found their tent torn from the inside, with some of the hikers barefoot and underdressed despite sub-zero temperatures. Bodies were discovered with severe injuries. One had a fractured skull, others had broken ribs, and one was missing her tongue and eyes. Jim Jones, a cult leader of the People's Temple, orchestrated the mass suicide of over 900 of his followers, including children, in a remote jungle settlement. They drank cyanide-laced flavor aid, commonly mistaken as Kool-Aid. Those who resisted were shot or injected with poison. It remains one of the largest mass deaths in modern history, not caused by natural disaster or war. On December 26, 2004, a massive undersea earthquake off the coast of Sumatra triggered a tsunami that claimed nearly 230,000 lives across 14 countries, including Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, and India. The waves, some over 100 feet high, swept entire villages into the sea. Survivors described the haunting silence before the wave and the screams as it hit, leaving utter devastation in its wake. Unit 731 was a covert biological and chemical warfare research unit of the Japanese Imperial Army that conducted horrifying experiments on prisoners, including Chinese civilians and Allied POWs. Victims were subjected to vivisection without anesthesia, infected with diseases like anthrax and plague, and exposed to extreme conditions. The atrocities were largely ignored after the war, when the US offered immunity in exchange for the unit's research data. Eliza Lam, a Canadian student, disappeared while staying at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. Her body was later found in the hotel's water tank after guests complained about low water pressure and foul-tasting water. CCTV footage showed her behaving erratically in the elevator, seemingly interacting with an unseen entity. The Nevado del Ruiz volcano erupted, triggering a massive mudslide that buried the town of Armero. Over 23,000 people died. One of the most haunting images was of Omaira Sanchez, a 13-year-old girl trapped in the debris. Despite efforts to rescue her, she died after 3 days of being stuck, her composure and tragic plight broadcast worldwide. During the Vietnam War, American soldiers killed over 500 unarmed Vietnamese civilians, including women, children, and the elderly, in the village of My Lai. The victims were tortured, raped, and mutilated before being executed. The atrocity was initially covered up, but later exposed, leading to widespread outrage and further fueling anti-war sentiments. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded, releasing massive amounts of radioactive material into the atmosphere. Dozens of workers and first responders died from acute radiation sickness, and thousands more suffered long-term effects, including cancer. The nearby town of Pripyat was evacuated and remains a ghost city to this day, serving as a chilling reminder of human error. Nathan Leopold and Richard Loeb, two wealthy college students, kidnapped and murdered 14-year-old Bobby Franks in Chicago, attempting to commit the perfect crime. They believed their intelligence made them superior and above the law. Their chilling lack of remorse and philosophical justification for the murder shocked the world. Human history is full of chilling, true tales that reveal the darker side of human nature or nature's unpredictability.